Hi there, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of January 26th through February 1st. Just about made it through our first month of 2026, and it's been quite a wild one. And this week is the week that the big one of the big shifts of the year starts with Neptune going into Aries for the next 14 years. And we also have a very intense Mars conjunct Pluto this week. And then Mercury is conjuncting Venus this week and quincunxing Jupiter together. And to top it all off, on Sunday, we have a full moon in Leo, which I have up on the chart here. So just a little business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week. And if you have a YouTube account, I'd really like you to become a follower. And when you do, don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you know when the blog is put out there, so that it reminds you every week. And remember, it was a podcast long before it was a YouTube channel. It's still available as a podcast, the exact same audio copy as this video. And just go to your podcast app, look up Astrological Winds channel. There's a number of them that cover it. The numbers, I notice more and more people are taking that option too, which is great because it frees you up, to do it while you're driving to work or whatever. When a lot of times, our time is so valuable these days, we need to kind of like multitask a little bit. Also, if you have an Instagram page, so does Astrological Winds channel, and it will show up in your newsreel every week if you become a follower there. Sometimes I put other stuff on. I haven't really been good about it lately. And it's always available on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. You'll see a little tab on top that says blogs. If you check that out, and then every week there's a calendar page up there too. You can check that out too when you check them if you go to the website. And that also happens to have all the information for my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for 24 years now. After 7 years of training, and I would love to do your chart, or if you have some other astrology work you'd like to have done, or if you know someone looking for that, you can refer them to my website. I'll get more into that at the end. I really want to get into the blog. Remember, if you don't know astrology well, don't get caught too much up on the terms. You want to hear the interpretation, because the key is working with the energy this week, trying to make our lives a little more fulfilling, a little more harmonious, that kind of thing. All right. And remember, I want you to pass this link along when we're done to someone else that you know. So like I said, Neptune going into Aries is huge, and that was a huge part of my annual blog that is on the website now. I posted it about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and I'm not going to get a lot more into detail about it right now. I don't want to get into it too much, but I will say this, and I'm going to get a little bit like a little bit on a opinion on some of what I'm seeing going on with this right now. I as an astrologer, as a professional astrologer in particular, it is really important for me to remain as objective as possible, in reading the energy and not allowing any of my own subjective opinions on things to color that energy, because everyone is experiencing it in their own personal way. But Neptune is a collective planet, and it's something that really is steering the evolution, or helping steer the evolution of the consciousness of our solar system, and where humans are with it right now. And this is with, as I said in the annual blog, with Pluto just changing signs last year into Aquarius, and that's going to be 20 years of that. And we're going to get 14 years of Neptune in Aries, and Uranus is going into Gemini this year, and Saturn is also going into Aries. We have literally a changing of the age right now, and it is at a very, very important point, crux point in history, and in the history of humans right now. And really, what I'm seeing is this is kind of giving us a choice to either choose fear and control, or and separation, or like unification, and what is like love and things that bring, hope into the world. And I think that's really going to be a key part of what goes on and how humans choose to live this out. Is going to really be key to what happens for the rest of this century, really. And Neptune and Aries can really bring out the worst in an individual in relation to the collective. I'm not going to be dishonest with you guys about that. It can be a real troublemaker, and we can already see in the world that certain leaders are very troublesome for the rest of the species, right? And there, we may all, as a species, come to a point soon where we have to make a choice between following those who are acting out of fear and control, and those who are acting out of trying to bring unification together, trying to bring people together, and out of trust, and having that first. And when you think about then bringing Neptune down, it is a collective planet, so we're kind of being steered together collectively down this path by our leaders who really reflect where many of us are at, whether we want to, agree or disagree with that. That's really the truth. Everything is a microcosm and macrocosm connected, as above, so below. Um, so Neptune and Aries as an individual, though, you can see that can be the brave individual who knows when they need to stand up and take a fight for their ideals. And right now, there are a lot of examples going on politically that are negative out there. But there are also, from what I have experienced, there are many people right now who are ready for some kind of change on an individual level. So we can really see this energy starting to crystallize, is my point already. And it's really key for us with all these outer planets changing signs. I said what we choose to do in the next in this next year or two is really going to affect the next 20 to 100 years in a very general sense. Um, One of the questions I would say that we could ask ourselves is, would we prefer to live and be taken to a place away from our homes and lives that will be more likely than not a terrible experience for us, or do we want to stand up and fight for the principles and the ideals that we believe in, and really put ourselves on the line? That can be the Neptune and Aries. We may not actually get a choice in this, you guys. We may be forced to make that choice eventually, is my point. So the question at that point we can be asking ourselves is, what brave new world do we want? Because we're all participants, right? There's no get out of jail free card. We all have a choice to make in our individual lives that help shape what the collective is heading for also. And Neptune and Pluto have been in a sextile for a long time, for decades now, pretty much. And what that means, and I've said this before on the blog, there is an underlying spiritual movement of unity going on, despite the illusion of Neptune on the surface, that can be brought to us through manipulation of the media by those who control it. So there's a lot to consider right now with this Neptune and these other changes going on with these outer planets, where the literal foundations of our society, you can see they're coming apart. You can't deny this, no matter whose side you're on. But I want you to know the astrology of these right now fits these times. This is what's supposed to be happening. And it also means that nothing is set in stone, that individuals have free will choices that steer where the destiny and dharma of the collective goes. It's up to our choices to steer where this goes. So right now we're going to get a choice, most likely, of choosing either fear power, unity, and hope and truth. And that's where we're at collectively in the timeline right now together. We are here at a very special time. And this has a lot to do with this. A lot of people may find out that there's a lot of courage within themselves to stand up for their ideals when that choice is going to be put in front of them. And it seems to be getting very close. In fact, I think a lot of people are going through that choice already, right? But I think it may be something that the whole world is going to have to go through. In the United States, being one of the leaders of the world, and of course, Soviet Russia, I should say, and China too, those are three countries where you can really see this energy playing out, right? So, all right. So that's, like I said, it's not going back into the details of what this all means like I did on the animal. This is what I'm seeing. And I tried to be objective about it as possible, and obviously I don't want to see the world sink into fear. You don't want to see the world sink into fear, probably either, right? So we'll know what to do, each of us individually, when that time comes, right? And hopefully we can choose that side of truth and hope and unity, and really, understanding our connection with all of life and everything and one another, and that we can all be supportive of one another. Um, all right. Anyway, Tuesday is a very potently explosive day because of this energy that I was just talking about. We have Mars conjuncting Pluto. And when Mars conjuncts Pluto, this is one of the most explosive, potentially explosive, violent transits that there is. And when you think of where we're at right now in the world and the events going on in the United States and other places, we are like really in the middle of it. And this shows that early this week, this energy is really probably going to ratchet up more. We're going to see some very explosive, violent, wild events, unfortunately, and that to ultimately what Pluto and Mars are together is creative energy that is bringing in change and transformation no matter what. And if we resist it, that is destructive usually. That, many times it comes in a very destructive form. What people try to do with this energy, because of the Mars side, where our ego is very involved, is they try to control everything. Pluto will get us into power struggles so quickly because everyone is trying to control their world and their environment, right? And so people literally are drunk with this energy, with their own ambition, right? They're drunk to the point of aggression. They're drunk to the point of being ruthless. So obviously, power struggles can come up, or you can possibly end up being a victim or a perpetrator of some kind of violent event. I definitely recommend avoiding dangerous people and places if you can during this time, and to try to use this energy because it's an extremely dynamic energy to throw yourself into working for whatever things you really want to do, and especially in a physical way. Like there's a lot of physical energy available here. This is the energy of the word endurance, the energy of a long distance runner, that can just keep going and going and going. And there's no doubt about what the final goal is. The problem is that our ways of acting, which is Mars again, what's motivating us, which is Mars again, can get us into serious conflicts with others about the way we're using energy, about the way they're using energy. So if you can discipline yourself with this energy, you can have the ability to work very hard and get a lot of success out of it. You can really move a lot of energy. You can purge things and bring in change. You can bring in creative change. You can bring in transformation that's permanent. But it is a highly potent, explosive energy. And there's a certain blindness to this energy too. There's a certain narrow mindedness to this energy too. It can be very arrogant and not willing to back down. So the expense, yeah, so the potential for explosive world events is very, very high this week, especially these first few days. Remember, Mars transits last several days too. So, like Monday through Wednesday in particular can be very strong for this energy. And then, like, we have something real sweet in the middle of the week is that on Thursday, we have Mercury conjunct Venus in Aquarius, and they're both quincunx Jupiter at the same time. And when you think about Mercury and Venus together, if you're gonna, put two words together for me to describe that, that's sweet words, right? It's a time when you can really express your feelings really well. And even if there's certain feelings that you need to straighten out things with people, you can do that well too. Like you don't get too heavy or deep, too accusatory, too much into the psychology behind it, so to speak. So you can really be agreeable with this energy and therefore, straighten out a lot of things, really articulate how you're feeling with subtlety and it's really good therefore for any kind of creative work with words too. So poetry, rapping, storytelling, whatever it may be, something when you're putting words and creativity together, this can really feed a lot of creative ideas about that. It really gets you to appreciate beauty too. Like Mercury and Venus get you to see like how things kind of work together and create beautiful forms, beautiful patterns, beautiful colors, shapes, things like that. So it's really, just very, very beautiful energy like that where it can, bring things together. But it's just great for relationships. Also with finances, it can be good too. Like you could actually get some kind of financial break with this energy too. So I really, really, really like that. And the quincunx to Jupiter, remember, I've said this before, Jupiter being the greater benefit planet, even when an aspect is a little bit wonky, like a quincunx, Jupiter is still bringing in more positive energy, and so Jupiter is actually going to just jack up the enthusiasm with this energy. It'll really get our both our minds and our emotions really like happy, excited, and it can definitely once again fire up ambitions, kind of like the Mars and Pluto does, but it's not driven like on that level. In fact, if anything, the problem with the quincunx to Jupiter is we can be like have a great vision and feel really like big about that inside and proud of ourselves and stuff, but then we can be really sloppy about the details. We can kind of like be not wanting to take care of a lot of them. But this gives a very creative mind though, and a very broad understanding of things. So a larger vision, a bigger plan can be really seen well on a day like this. And you can definitely get a little bit haughty with your attitude too with this is a good way to say it. You get a little bit lazy, maybe even border on levels of being hypocritical at times, not doing what you're telling others that they should be doing, but it's definitely one where you enjoy being with people. Venus and Jupiter and Mercury together just love socializing, especially with people that we're close with. But it's pretty easy to get along with anybody really with them and really have fun. It's kind of like a loose kind of energy, like comfortable behavior kind of energy. And then comes Sunday and the full moon in Leo at 13 degrees. And both the moon and the sun are actually on the midpoint of Venus and Mars. You can see the sun is exactly on the midpoint, the short midpoint, which means the moon is exactly on the long midpoint. So that's going to be a part of the effect of this one. And it's separating, the moon is separating from an opposition to Mars and is applying to an opposition to Venus. So those are the two aspects that it's having in relation to that. And what you want to do is look to where 13 degrees of Leo is in your chart, and then 13 degrees of Aquarius on the opposite side of the chart. And those two houses were the axis that they are hitting are where you'll see this full moon most likely manifest in your life the most. So what the moon in Leo, remember the full moon is always in opposition. The moon, the emotional side of us, the side that needs security, versus the sun, the willful side of us, the side that's like, trying to push forward in life and be out there and more externalized. So they're at opposition every month when the moon is when there's a full moon, right? So there's some tension between them. And the moon in Leo is looking for its security through recognition, basically through getting some kind of attention, through getting love, actually, is really what it comes down to. And it's a highly playful moon. The Leo wants to have fun. It's very creative energy. The Leo Aquarius axis is the creativity axis. So, but on the Leo side, it's very individualistic. This energy, it wants to show ourselves off in some way, and it has a lot of pride attached to that. So at times, what does that do? It borders on arrogance, right? It borders on, like, being self righteous, especially if we don't get that attention. We can literally kind of get voyeuristic in trying to get it, especially if we don't think we're getting what we deserve, and so it really feels good to us, this moon in Leo, because we feel like we've tapped into something that's creative, that's very unique, that's very me, and that's where the Aquarius sun has a little bit of trouble with it. It's like, yeah, that's great to have this creative energy that's really you, but is it only all about you? Like, what do you have to contribute to the greater good? What do you have to contribute to some group? Because Aquarius is sitting there and it's much more group oriented, and it's saying, hey, I want you to use those talents to benefit everybody, not just yourself. And they're both fixed signs, and they're both yang signs, so they can get very like stubborn about what they believe in and will fight for it. You can see how Leo energy, people will fight for it. Like, in the US, Donald Trump is a Leo rising. You see how he fights for what he really believes in. And they're both very creative signs, and very inspired by new ideas. So this is definitely a time where we want to tap into our creativity and our potential and bring it out into the world. It will bring us a lot of satisfaction on a personal level. And the more it benefits others, the more we'll be in balance with the full moon energy. So it's now the fact that they're both at the midpoint of Venus and Mars, to me, once again shows they're going to have that this full moon's probably going to have a lot to do with relationships too, again, on a personal level, that we may find ourselves really strongly attracted to other people, possibly in a love or romantic kind of way, or in a creative, artistic kind of way. This, creativity is sparked with this kind of alignment and between people. There's so like the creativity of the Leo Aquarius is definitely gonna, be sparked up through relationship and through people. And like I said, that can come out as romance, that can come out as any kind of way of creativity. There's so many ways, right? And so, like, for me, part of this is like there's a drive to make these emotional connections with others right now. It's interesting, the separation from the moon opposite Mars is the last aspect, may show that right before this full moon, many of us may have had some kind of crisis where we were really upset or angry with other people, and it was maybe just an individual or a group, or it may have been a lot of other people, and you're feeling like, like some, just like a battle going on and feeling like, oh, I need to be like myself, individualized, maybe get really caught up in the ego and pride things that Moon and Leo and that Mars can bring. And then maybe during this full moon, we see that in ourselves, that our part in that, and then realize, yes, we really do need to have connection with others. We need to have relationship, which is the next applying aspect, the moon opposite Venus. That's all about wanting to have connection with others. And sometimes, there's a lot of powerful emotions brought out in this. There can be, once again, discord in relationships with moon opposite Venus if there's emotional stuff that's being swept under the rug and not really brought out. But it's also a great time to actually sit down and talk those things out and try to find some balancing point. This is gives us an opportunity to express our emotions well without getting aggressive like Mars would, but rather like, wanting to create some kind of emotional bond and come to some kind of balanced agreement that feels good to both sides. So this full moon is actually relatively pure in the sense that the moon is actually ruled, because it's in Leo, it's ruled by the sun. So that besides Venus and Mars, there's really no other planet right now that has an agenda in this full moon. So, like I said, look in your chart to where 13 Leo and Aquarius is in those houses, and it'll show you where this full moon is giving you a little bit of a light. And if anybody ever needs, I've said this before, if anyone ever needs a new moon or full moon, quick 10 or 15-minute reading, that's something I can do too. Um, but anyway, that's what I got for this week. So a lot of dynamic energy for sure. This is long term, but this is explosive, the Mars Pluto. So be really careful with that one. And I think this energy, the Mercury Venus, by in the end of the work week, can bring people together. And then the full moon, obviously there's always challenges in the full moon, and a lot of people are going to act out and get really egotistical and prideful and be blinded by that. But other people are going to realize what their unique gift is to the whole collective, and that kind of steers us back to where this is, Neptune and Aries. And what are you trying to help steer that collective towards? Because it's a big key moment right now. All right. Well, that's what I got for this week. This is Matt Law. And let me take a real quick. Now, next week, I will do the monthly for February too, for sure. And let's see what else we got going on next week. Uranus is going to go direct next week. So the final one, well, Jupiter is still retrograde, but all the other outer planets, including Chiron, have gone direct at this point. So that will be one of the last ones. And then Mercury will lead the charge into Pisces next week, a sign that Mercury is not comfortable in at all. So those will be the main things I'm talking about. And like I said, I'll look at the February, the outers too. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Wings channel. You're going to pass this link along to somebody else in your contact list right now as you pay it forward for my free service. If you'd like to give a currency donation, no amount is too small. My Venmo is the symbol at Matthew with two T's, hyphen in the middle, Lawton, Lauten, or Cash App is $ Matthew Lawton, all one word there. Best way, as I've said, to support me is to check the website out when you need a professional reading. And if you haven't had your chart done yet by a professional and you're listening to this blog, you need to have it done. It's not the same as having a friend who dabbles or a book or a computer printout. It is a much more holistic experience, if not from me, from another pro. And then every year around your birthday, you should get your annual reading, just like I do for the week, I do for you for a year. Make the investment in yourself. All kinds of other readings too, relationships, children's charts, fixed star, relocation. If you have a group, I can do lectures, workshops, mini readings for your events, classes. If you're a student, there's some beginner classes available on podcasts for a fee. I'm all always looking for beginner or intermediate students to do a live class with, but I will only do that if 4 people are pre-committed to that. So if you're ever interested in that, any of those things, get in touch with me. There's a contact on the website or my email down here, mattthue823 at gmail.com. All right, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you all next week, and we'll take a look at February. And like I said, we'll also take a look at Mercury going into Pisces. Take care now.